Welcome. We're going to get started over here at the cooking corner. Come on over. So this afternoon, our presenter is Rebel Black, who owns I'm Not Fussy, traditional wisdom on cooking, growing food, making food. And we're lucky to have her here today to share a couple of recipes. One is the flatbread with thyme, and the other is a homemade ricotta. So looking forward to that. A little bit about Rebel. She's recently described as the Jamie Oliver of Outback Australia. And her other passions, in addition to talking about food, teaching food, is, of course, family, community, education, and travel. Rebel is a passionate believer in the power of investing in people and reconnecting them with traditional wisdom. And today, I'm going to pass over to her and see if we can learn a thing or two. Thanks, Rebel.
Thanks, Paige. Hey, guys. I'm very excited to be here. I've come all the way to Hobart from Outback, New South Wales, a little town called Lightning Ridge. It's an opal mining community of about 2,500 people, and I've spent the last 13 years working in community development out there, and over that period of time have developed a real passion for educating people in how to get back to basics, particularly around food. So we run a lot of cooking programs, we teach people about health and lifestyle and nutrition, and we also have veggie gardening programs. So I spend a lot of time helping people really reconnect with food, and it's really exciting for me to be here today to share with you. I'm actually going to start with a wholemeal beer bread, using all Tasmanian produce today, which is really exciting. So this is a really simple bread for people to get started with. I've been making my own bread for about 10 years now, and I wish I'd known about this recipe when I got started because there were a lot of failures early on. This recipe is almost foolproof, and it's also really adaptable. So you can use different combinations of flours, you can use different kinds of beer or cider, and you can add lots of things, fruits and nuts and all sorts of things to it to jazz it up and make it really special. But today we're going to do the simplified version. All the recipes that I'm going to be doing today I can email to you. I've got a sheet up the front if you're interested, and I'm going to be sending those out at the end of the weekend. So we're just going to start with some organic wholemeal plain flour. This can be used with plain white flour as well, but I really like to educate people to start swapping white for brown. And this is a really nice transition for people that haven't necessarily had a lot of brown flour in their diet. This recipe is a really great way to get that started. So we use a 1 1/4 cups of the organic wholemeal flour. And we do a similar, the same quantity of the plain flour. Now this is a no knead, no prove, no rise bread recipe, which takes all of the, the joy if you really like to make bread, but some of the challenge when you're first starting out. It takes up to 3 hours to make a really good loaf of bread, and this takes under 45 minutes, including cooking time. So we've just got the 2 flours in there. And we're going to add a fair amount of baking powder. We're going to add 4½ teaspoons of baking powder, and this is the leavening agent. So this is what gives the bread the rise, along with the beer that we're going to add. So that's 2, 3, 4½, roughly. This is a no-kill recipe, so I'm not really into measuring stuff. Most of my recipes I just make up as I go, but for some things you've got to measure a little. So we'll just mix that in. You can add a little bit of salt to this if you want to. I prefer not to. Now what we're going to add, we've got a beautiful 7 Sheds Tasmanian dark ale here, kindly donated, as is all the produce. And we're going to add 350 mils, which is a cup and an extra 100 mils to this, to make our batter. Now beer is a fermented product, and so it's already got yeast. So when you make there's 3 different ways of making bread. One is to use the traditional method, of course, which is the oldest method, which is the sourdough method, which has been shown earlier today. Then you've got the proven rise method using yeast, and then you've got this style, which is borrowing the yeast or the ferment from the yeast from something else, which is what we're doing with the beer, because the beer's already been fermented, and so it's already got yeast activated within it, and so we're just borrowing that from the bread, from the beer to make our bread nice and light, and so that it will rise. But the thing about using the beer, you can also use cider, as long as it's a fermented alcoholic product. The alcohol cooks off, so don't worry about kids eating it, they'll be perfectly safe. Because it's got the yeast already activated in it, we don't have to leave this to prove or rise. We can literally just put it in the oven as it is. Now you can see that's a little bit stiff, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of the beer, because we want it to look a bit like a cake dough before we put it into the tin. I have used all sorts of different ciders and beers with this. It's really delicious with a pear cider, and then with some pear or apple. My favourite's pear. But with the pear cider, and then you slice a few pieces of raw pear and place them on top, and then they caramelise during the cooking process, and they add a really beautiful soft sweetness to the bread. That's really nice with toasted coconut added to it as well, that pear one. So you can see there that it's kind of, I don't know who to look at. We've got a bit of a cake mixture, you can see. Can you guys see that? It's brown because of the beer that we've used. So this is a dark cider, so it's going to have a really caramelised flavour in the bread. And that's it. Now we're going to find the cake tin. Put it into the cake tin. Spread it out. It's meant to be rustic, this bread, so we're not going to take too much, effort. We'll get it to look just like a cake. It really does look just like a cake. You can add a few little crosses in the top, or when I was a child, my grandmother used to make her own bread, and I still have memories of having fresh baked bread come out of the oven, and she would always put rock salt on the top. So you'd put lots of butter, of course, on the fresh baked bread, and then you'd bite into it and you'd get this incredible salt hit from the rock salt on the top. And I still remember that. I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and it's one of my strongest food memories. And every time I think of bread, I think of my grandma. So I'm just going to put this into the oven now for between half an hour and 45 minutes. Every oven's different, so we just need to keep an eye on it. But by the time I'm finished the other recipes, this is going to be ready. So I've put that in the middle of the oven so it gets a nice even heat around it, and it's at a 180 degrees. Does that seem easy? Yeah? Would you do it at home? It's seriously simple and it's really delicious. And like I said, you can adapt it. You can make it a sweet bread. You could add a little bit of sugar into it if you wanted to, or some kind of a syrup to make it sweet. Add dried fruit, coconut. You could put superfood powers in, you're wanting to make it a bit superfood, chia, those sorts of things that are really fantastic for you. You can do anything to it, and it's just going to be delicious every time, and different as well.